All right, let's just dive right into this. Today, we're exploring the ultimate comforting, refreshing drink that basically transforms a simple recipe into a really fascinating lesson in culinary science. We're talking about Osmanthus Oolong roasted milk tea. And listen, this isn't just about carelessly throwing some tea leaves and milk into a pot and hoping for the best. No way. This is an absolute masterclass in flavor extraction, strict temperature control, and delicately balancing aromas. Honestly, whether you're a massive tea enthusiast or just someone wanting to level up your homebrewing game, understanding the actual why behind these steps is going to completely change how you look at milk tea.
So there's this wonderful saying, a house full of osmanthus fragrance, gentle from hot to cold. I think this just beautifully captures the whole sensory vibe of our explainer today. It highlights how this perfectly balanced drink provides ultimate comfort, whether it's served steaming hot to warm you up or poured straight over ice for a really crisp refreshment. You know, it's actually pretty rare to find a culinary creation that holds onto its structural integrity and gentle flavor profile across such extreme temperature shifts. But, as you'll see, the science we're about to unpack makes that entirely possible.
Here is our quick roadmap for today's explainer. First up, the ultimate roasted milk. Then, core ingredients and ratios, followed by the art of roasting. Next, we'll hit perfecting the milk texture, and we'll wrap up with customizing your perfect cup.
Okay, let's kick things off with Section 1, core ingredients and the foundation of flavor.
We really have to start right at the foundation, because when it comes to extracting that flawless flavor profile, your exact ratios absolutely matter. In any kind of brewing, precision is exactly what separates a mediocre cup from a truly unforgettable, room-filling aromatic experience. So, you need exactly 7 grams of oolong tea to give us that robust base, 15 grams of yellow rock sugar, 3 grams of dry osmanthus for that essential floral hit, 12 grams of pitted and half-dried dates, 350 milliliters of milk to smooth out the astringency, and precisely 100 milliliters of hot water. Straying too far from these exact numbers, well, you're going to disrupt the delicate balance we're working so hard to achieve.
And here's your mental roadmap for the baseline process. It's a quick 5-step journey, from gathering your ingredients to taking that very first fragrant sip. Step 1, lightly roast the tea, the sugar, and just a portion of the osmanthus. Step 2, add your hot water and the red dates. Step 3, heat the milk until it's just lightly smoking. Step 4, filter the whole mixture and sprinkle the remaining osmanthus right on top. And finally, step 5, serve it either cooled down or over ice. It sounds super simple on the surface, right? But the actual science hidden inside these 5 steps is pretty incredible.
Now, you might be wondering about a really interesting choice here regarding the sweetener. It leads us straight into a crucial lesson in flavor chemistry. You might look in your pantry and think, hey, can I just use regular white table sugar or, maybe brown sugar for a deeper flavor? The short answer is a hard no, and understanding exactly why is critical to mastering this drink.
This brings us to why yellow rock sugar is literally mandatory. Its gentle profile works in total harmony with the roasted oolong, instead of aggressively masking that delicate osmanthus. See, white sugar brings this very sharp, almost piercing sweetness that throws the whole balance off. And brown sugar? Well, while it's delicious, it has this incredibly strong, overpowering molasses flavor. It's basically a bulldozer that will completely drown out those highly sought-after floral notes. Yellow rock sugar, on the other hand, provides this mild, warm sweetness. It acts like a bridge between the tea and the milk, rather than overpowering the whole shebang. Let's also talk about those red dates for a second. By taking the time to pit and halve the 12 grams of red dates, we ensure their deep, natural sweetness perfectly balances the tea's natural astringency during a really short 2-minute boil. If you just toss them in whole, 2 minutes simply isn't enough time for the water to penetrate the skin and extract all those complex sugars. Plus, leaving the pit in can actually introduce these unwanted dry, bitter sensations into your brew. Honestly, pitting and halving is a tiny little step, but it pays massive dividends in flavor.
Moving right along to Section 2, the art of roasting, where we look at extraction and harmony. Okay, this is definitely the most technique-heavy phase of the preparation, the art of the low-heat roast. Now, this is the exact moment your kitchen is going to start smelling absolutely incredible, but it's also where you need to be paying the closest attention. You have to rely entirely on your senses here. The precise second that the yellow rock sugar begins to micro-melt and that tea aroma floats up into the air, that is when you must stop to prevent burning. We're keeping the heat super low. We're not making a full liquid caramel here. We want just the absolute edges of those rock sugar crystals to begin breaking down and micro-melting. The second your nose catches that beautiful roasted tea and floral scent floating up, you are done. Pushing it even a few seconds too long, you'll scorch the tea leaves and introduce this really unpleasant, acrid bitterness. So once you hit that absolute perfect roasting point, a huge question comes up about the temperature of the water you introduce next. Why must we add hot water immediately after roasting? I mean, it might seem way easier to just grab a cup of cold tap water, right? But doing that would fundamentally ruin the extraction process we just so carefully set up. The crucial takeaway here is that hot water immediately captures the aroma and keeps that sugar dissolved. Cold water, however, creates a bitter, over-steeped disaster. Just think about the physics happening in that pot. You've got hot, micro-melted sugar. If you suddenly dump cold water onto it, the temperature violently crashes. That sugar is going to seize up and solidify into a hard rock. But more importantly, the cold water forces the tea leaves to soak for way too long while the water slowly comes back up to a boil, which pulls out all those bitter tannins from the oolong. Hot water keeps the momentum going flawlessly. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, hey, why don't we just dump all 3 grams of the osmanthus into the pot at once during the roast? Wouldn't that be a lot easier? And yeah, while it might save you maybe 2 seconds, splitting the osmanthus into 2 very distinct additions is a highly calculated culinary technique. This inside and out method is honestly a total masterstroke. It gives you a really deep roasted base flavor while also ensuring a fresh floral top note hits your senses the literal second you take a sip. See, when you fry a portion of the osmanthus early on with the tea, the heat fundamentally alters its profile. It bakes that deep, roasted floral essence straight into the foundational liquid. But that same cooking process destroys its delicate, fresh top notes. So by holding a little bit back to sprinkle on at the very end after filtering, you get this bright, uncooked, highly aromatic floral punch right on your nose before the liquid even touches your tongue. Let's jump to Section 3, perfecting the milk texture, or what I like to call the science of smoothness. This final cooking phase requires absolute, strict temperature control. It's literally the difference between a velvety, luxurious beverage and a complete textural nightmare. Milk is notoriously delicate to heat up, so we really have to treat it with respect. Let's walk through how this builds across our precise timeline, anchoring our visual cues right up until the edges of the pot just begin to slightly smoke. So, we start at T0. That's the micro-melting sugar and the aroma cue. Immediately, boom, we add our hot water to maintain that temperature. We boil the dates for exactly 2 minutes to extract their sweetness. And then, in goes the milk. At this point, you have to stand by the pot and watch it like a hawk. The exact moment you see gentle wisps of smoke and tiny bubbles forming just at the edges of the pot, you kill the heat. Stop at the smoke. Never, ever boil the milk. Seriously, if you take away just one single technique from this entire explainer today, let it be this strict rule: never let the milk reach a rolling boil. It's the #1 most common mistake homebrewers make, and it completely compromises the entire drink. So why is this a rule? Well, let's look at the science. Boiling triggers what's called protein denaturation. This forms that really unpleasant milk skin and completely wrecks the smooth harmony between the milk and the tea. When milk reaches a rapid boil, its proteins permanently alter their structure. They clump together, they float to the top, and they create that tough, rubbery skin. But actually worse than that, the milk loses its ability to smoothly integrate with the astringent tea. You're left with a broken, watery mouthfeel instead of that rich, velvety texture we're aiming for. Finally, let's hit Section 4, customizing your cup. We'll look at health considerations and some variations. You know, a great recipe shouldn't be totally rigid. It should act as a strong foundation that you can actually tailor to your own life. Whether you're trying to warm up your cold hands in a freezing air-conditioned room or you need a really crisp summer iced tea, this drink adapts beautifully. Hot, it provides this lovely, non-greasy, gentle warmth for cold extremities. And because the sweetness is already so perfectly balanced, you can easily pull back on the rock sugar. Or pour it straight over ice, and you've got a profoundly refreshing summer cooler. I do have to note, though, that if you have a damp heat constitution or high blood sugar, you definitely want to enjoy this one in moderation. 0. That is exactly how many grams of rock sugar you actually need to add if you want a fully natural, low-sugar drink that relies 100% on the sweetness of the red dates. Remember how we took the time to meticulously pit, halve, and boil those 12 grams of red dates? Well, they release a beautiful, complex, natural fruit sugar right into the tea. For a lot of people who prefer a much milder, more natural sweetness, that is totally enough to balance the oolong, which means you can bypass added sugars entirely. A house full of osmanthus fragrance.
By following this precise science, you're guaranteeing that beautiful, room-filling floral aroma every single time you brew. You now know exactly why we micromelt the sugar. You know why we use hot water to keep the extraction momentum going. You know why we split those floral additions into 2 distinct sensory steps. And you know exactly why we pull that milk off the heat the split second it begins to smoke. You're not just blindly following a recipe anymore. You are quite literally applying culinary physics.
So, armed with the why behind every single step, the only question we have left is how you're going to choose to experience your perfect cup today. Are you going to brew it hot so you can wrap your hands around it for some much-needed comfort? Or will you pour it over ice to cut right through the summer heat? The science remains the exact same, but the experience is totally up to you. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and definitely go enjoy your perfectly brewed, scientifically sound roasted milk tea. Catch you next time.